Now it's broadcasting. Okay. Uh, this is Tom, Ketogenic Fasting Project again. And today I have a guest, Brett Lloyd, personality I know from Facebook mostly. We're in several groups together, and I thought it would be good to have him on to talk about his experience and some of the skills he's picked up along the way. So why don't you give us a little rundown there, Brett?
Hey, Tom, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate this opportunity to share my experience, my story with your audience. I'm a 58-year-old musician, and I suffered from major depression, anxiety, and insomnia from the time I was 15 until just last year. I was on medication for over 20 years and experienced what I call a severe cycle of wellness and illness, where periods of wellness became shorter and shorter, and the periods of illness got larger and larger. And doctors tried all sorts of medicinal combinations, combining antidepressants with antipsychotics, with mood stabilizers, and all sorts of things. And all it did was make me worse. And at no time through all of this did anybody ever say, hey, Brett, you know, you're eating a crappy diet. If you stopped eating that stuff, maybe you'd feel a little better. At
Yeah, I've
no
heard that
time.
story before.
Yeah. And, I was taught, I grew up, we ate the textbook standard American diet, had a big vegetable garden, fresh veggies year round. We ate plenty of meat. There was always meat at the table. But, and out of our family of the four of us, my dad's had cancer and is dying from type 2 diabetes. My sister's got ulcerative colitis. My
Mm.
mom's had more health problems than I can even count. And of course, as I just mentioned, lifelong depression and mental illness, all out of a household following the standard American diet.
Mm.
So I'll fast forward to a lot of what happened to me for brevity's sake, but basically, I was on a slow, accelerating spiral from like 1995 to 2015, let's say. And in January 2015, I weighed 289 pounds. I was on 7 to 8 different meds for depression, anxiety, and insomnia. And my psychiatrist would say, you know, you should really start giving serious thought to electroshock therapy or a long-term hospitalization so we can figure out just exactly what's wrong with you. And I've worked in the mental health field for many years in my 20s and 30s, and I had observed patients right after they'd had electroshock therapy, and there wasn't any way in the world I was going to subject myself to that. And my big fear was if I would agree to a long-term hospitalization, I might never come out. So things were very bleak. I had a dear friend of mine mention to me through this, hey, have you ever considered medical cannabis? And as a musician, cannabis was around me all the time, but I had a bad experience with it when I was young. It wasn't my thing. But my wife and I are to the point now where life has been miserable for so long that we're like, well, what do we have to lose? And I did a little research and found some anecdotal evidence. And what did we have to lose? So we got some 4 grams of flour. My wife made can of butter and made these little quarter-sized cookies. I ate a half of one of those cookies, Tom, and after about 10 minutes, it felt like 1,000 suns had lifted off my body. I wasn't high. I just didn't feel like crap anymore. What am I looking at?
This is coconut oil.
Uh-huh.
It's infused coconut oil. Yeah, it's made from a variety that's got 50% CBD and 50% THC.
Well, you already got a good idea of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that particular type mixture before. CBD didn't do that much for me, but the entourage effect with THC and CBD together for me has been spectacular.
Mm. Yeah,
Anyway,
my
this,
my mother died of cancer, and at the end there, she was a retired LA County probation officer, and nobody thought she'd even ever come close to trying the cannabis, but she'd been so sick for so long. The edibles in particular were a great relief to her because most of the medications, the opiates and stuff like that, just made her sicker, you know.
sure.
So
Well,
I hear you.
for me, it treated my symptoms. It did not cure my illnesses, but it did treat the symptoms better than any of those pills ever did.
Sure.
And 10 days after I started using the cannabis, I became aware of my physical body in an accurate way for the first time in many years. I'm tying my shoes, and suddenly my belly's in the way. And I'm like, what in the world? And I start having a small panic attack. I get short of breath. I get a cold sweat going, and I'm genuinely frightened by what I'm becoming aware of, because I knew I was big and heavy. I had no idea the state that I was in, and immediately told my wife that it was time to go on the Atkins diet, which I had done several years earlier and lost weight. And my mood got better, but we didn't make the connection. My mood, we thought, got better because I had come to terms with some things, some issues that we thought was the underlying cause of a lot of my problems. Meanwhile, I had a really good year from like 2009 to 2010 eating this way. And the only reason I stopped eating that way was I got a little foolish out of ignorance again. I thought, I'm going to eat some things I like again for a while. And if I put on some weight, I can always go back on Atkins. And the next thing I know, I'm curled up on the couch one Sunday evening, bawling like a baby and don't have any idea why. So the cannabis got me to where I could tell that I was overweight in the extreme. That was a very dangerous place. And it allowed me to start walking, and a half a block with the dog became a full block with the dog, became 2 blocks, became, I wonder how far it is to walk 4 blocks. And I got a mapping program and put on my phone and started mapping how far it was. And I figured out how far a half a mile away was from the front door. And so I started walking a mile each day. And then I wanted to know how far away a mile was from the front door so I could figure out how far 2 miles was. And over a 3.5-year period, I walked off 94 pounds, low carb, high fat. By the end of 2015, I was off the antidepressants. By the end of 2016, I was off the anti-anxiety, the Ativan. And by the end of 2017, I was off all the insomnia meds. But I was still dependent upon cannabis. I'd made a lot of progress, but I still wasn't right. I knew I wasn't right. So fast forward to, around this time, May, June of 2018, and I have a friend of mine who says, you got to watch this guy named Jordan Peterson. He's pretty awesome. And Jordan Peterson's a world-renowned author and thinker, and I'm a great admirer of his. I believe him to be a man of great integrity. I love the fact that he's about putting good out into the world and being honest.
I'm looking to see. I have a couple of his books laying around. I'm looking to see if I got one here.
Oh, Maps of Meaning. Do you have that one?
I have that in audio form, but I bought a copy of 12 Rules for Life for somebody that was laying around here. So
those are outstanding. I haven't read Maps of Meaning yet. I haven't read all of 12 Rules yet because I can only read him in short periods, and then I have to think about it.
12 Rules is a much easier read than Maps of Meaning. Maps of Meaning is a deep dive. Whew.
Oh, it's a serious hardcore dive. My wife bought that book for herself. I'm going to finish 12 Rules. It's just between the podcast and the reading, there's so much information in a paragraph that he writes.
Yeah,
I want to make sure I properly absorbed it and thought about it all before I just move on and plow through it to be plowing through it.
it
But
is dense.
oh, I became such a fan that I would spend a lot of my free time just watching Jordan Peterson videos.
Mm.
And then one day I came upon this cutout, a 30-minute cutout from him being on Joe Rogan,
Mm.
where he talks about how his daughter figured out how to heal her arthritis and severe depression, which is an insane, crazy story. God bless Michaela Peterson. And that he, who I was completely unaware that he suffered from depression, had done the same thing. So my jaw's on the floor, my eyes are bugging. I'm like, if this is anybody but Jordan Peterson saying this, I'm changing the channel. I'm thinking, it's just some nut job. But because it's Jordan Peterson, I took it seriously. And so I started to search for the carnivore diet. And
Right.
the very next person I found on YouTube was one Sean Baker on Joe Rogan.
Mm.
And I probably watched the dietary portion of that episode at least 50 times. Because here's another man with towering integrity, impeccable credentials, Air Force combat surgeon. I mean, seriously.
Mm.
You just don't get a higher quality level of person than that, in my opinion. And then after that, I found a video by Amber O'Hearn, a talk she gave at Keto Fest in 2017 that kind of put the last piece of the puzzle that I needed to see enough of the picture. It was about how we literally came down out of the trees 2.5 million years ago by eating meat.
Yeah, she is kind of one of the hinge pins in the carnivore community, because I mean she's been at it for almost 10 years now. It's just
Well, she's been
amazing.
at it over 10 years now. She's
Right.
had her 10-year carniversary.
Mm.
She's one of many that and she's such an incredible mind. She's so intelligent. I have nothing but great respect for her. But she explained things, this historical anthropological science stuff, in such a way that a guitar player like me could understand it.
Mm.
Even though I didn't know what a Seacom was, I didn't even know I had one until I watched that video.
Right. Who needed to know until we had a reason, right?
Exactly. And I'm looking at my wife, I have to do this. I have to try this. I mean, I can be free of all this. And so July 16th, 2018, I began eating animal source foods only. The first week or two, there was eggs and steak, a lot of eggs and steak.
Mm-hmm.
And then eggs suddenly stopped becoming satisfying to me. They still tasted great, but there just was no there anymore.
Hmm.
And so since then, I've been nothing but meat and water. And 10 days into it, I woke up, I didn't have joint pain. Now, I'd never
Nice.
been diagnosed as arthritic.
Mm.
I had aches and pains, 57
Right.
years, you bump into things, you fall down, some bones break.
Sure.
But I was ambulatory, but I didn't consider myself in a bad way.
Right.
But then when I woke up without joint pain, Tom, I was literally like a 10-year-old skipping down the street on his morning walk just because it felt good and I could do it.
I had that same experience.
It just blew my mind. It was almost like I lost weight all over again. And on the 24th morning, I'm on my 2-mile walk, and I'm about, I don't know, 3/4 of the first mile into it. And it was like a switch flicked. And suddenly I was filled with happiness and joy that I'll never forget. It just was the most beautiful thing. Again, it was sensation was like, I felt like I lost weight all over again. I didn't, there were no angelic choirs or magic lights, but it was just this amazing, overwhelming joy and it's not really left me since. All the symptoms were gone completely. And I've not, I honest to God, I haven't had a bad day since. I haven't had a down day since. I don't have down days. I don't, life still throws obstacles at me. The car might break down. There might be a water line break. Oh gosh, how are we going to fix this? But I'm not depressed anymore. The worst that life could throw at me after what I've been through, please. and after 5 months, all the anxiety problems went away. That took a little longer to get completely to the curb. I sleep really well. I get at least 6 hours of sleep every night, some nights 7 and 8. There might be 1 or 2 nights a week that I don't get 5. I only get 4, but I have so much energy. I'm not tired. I don't have the brain fog. I don't have that, when we're short on sleep before. It was, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this day? Please just let me live till bedtime. Right. I don't have any of that. I was unemployable in the real non-musical work world for years and years and years. I was able to go back to work. Every aspect of my life has been immensely improved by living this way. And that's why I go out of my way to share my story with anybody who wants to hear about it, because our stories give hope to people. There was a point in time where I was just desperate for anything. Mm-hmm. If somebody with the integrity of Sean Baker had said, if you just eat 3 pebbles that look like this, you'll feel better, I would have given it serious thought. Because that's the state, depression is a horrible thing. I used to describe it to people as imagine living with a 50-pound anvil on your head. Mm-hmm. It's there with you when you wake up. It's relentless. It's always weighing down on you. You can't escape it. And it's there when you go to bed. And it just grinds on you and wears you down. It's not about, are you a strong enough person? Or, hey, if you just took a walk once in a while, you'd feel better. No, it was just an illness that had tried to destroy me. And thanks be to God, I'm free of it. All because I learned about eating meat and drinking water.
Mm-hmm. So when you first started, was it just the excitement of trying something new that just gave you the momentum to just change your diet, or did you have any struggles giving up the other foods or anything like that?
Well, because I'd been low carb, high fat for 3.5 years, I had a really easy adaptation phase. I only had like 2 or 3 things to give up. Like in June of 2018, I was eating mostly eggs, a tiny little bit of French bread type toast. And I think I was still eating a banana once in a while then, because I hadn't learned yet that banana is basically just a small box of sugar. Anyway, I was still kind of ignorant. I had so much to learn. But so I didn't have a hard adaptation phase. And that's one thing I'd like to recommend to everybody. It's my experience that if people want to start living this way and they're coming from the standard American diet, go low carb for 30 days. Get used to not being so carb addicted, lose a little weight, you'll get rid of some water weight, and your sugar addiction will get dialed down a little bit. That will make your adaptation phase a lot easier and less problematic when you do go full carnivore. And I highly recommend that when somebody starts the carnivore diet, you eliminate dairy for at least the first 30 days. And then after 30 days, if you want to add it back to see if you can tolerate it, go ahead. But the first 30 days, just meat and water. And a question I get asked a lot of times is, well, how did you not get bored just eating meat? I thought about that a lot before I started this. And I figured a problem that a lot of people have is they just a ribeye by itself, to me, visually and intellectually, I know it's nutritious. I know it's perfect for me, but I could see intellectually that I could get bored with that. So I made up my mind that when I started this, I would always have bacon with every meal.
Mm.
because I could never think of a time in my life that I had bacon with a meal that it wasn't delicious.
I would agree with you.
Even if that was the only thing that was edible on the plate, that was a good meal if there was bacon on it.
True
So
that.
I've made it a point to incorporate bacon into every meal, and I have never gotten bored. I've never felt like I was denying myself. I never am hungry between meals. The urge to snack or that need, that 10 a.m. or 2 in the afternoon crash. Oh, we got to have something out of the machine, or what are we going to do?
I think it's hard to convince people that when you start eating this way, those cravings just seem to go away. And, like I eat twice in one day, and I eat from somewhere around noon, and then again at like 2, and then I'm done. And so I eat that, and then I don't get hungry again until the next day, and I don't have any cravings. I'm not fighting with myself not to eat something I'm not supposed to eat. And I think it's really hard to convince people of that because they've never experienced it before.
It really is the most liberating thing I've ever done for myself is ending my sugar addiction. And I focus a lot on that on Facebook because I have a lot of friends and a lot of family that they're just like I used to be. They're inflamed, they're hurting, they're suffering from all kinds of illnesses that could be reversed if they just stopped eating garbage and stopped putting toxins into their body. But they are as brainwashed as we used to be, as I used to be. They just haven't had that I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired moment. I guess, I don't know. I can't imagine why some people aren't more curious about it. A lot of people are just accept the old fallacy, oh, it's your genetics. You're just broken. You're just going to have, life rolled you some sad dice. You're just going to have to live with it. Well, that's nonsense. You don't have to suffer anymore.
I think it's really hard for people to accept the idea that their diet is probably the most impactful factor on their mood, like depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And of course, you and I both have the experience of the joint pain going away, and it's such a drastic impact. It's like, it's hard. I know I would have a hard time believing if somebody was just telling me that. So I'm right there with you. I wonder all the time how I can get that message out to people.
Well, one of the ways that I found that I've had the most success with is I show my before and after pictures. Then that gets their attention because, I weigh 177 pounds now. I feel amazing. My skin, I used to have a lot of dry and cracked skin all over the place. And my skin looks so much healthier. I have people tell me all the time, you look like you're getting younger. Well, I know I'm not, but these are people who don't see me all that often. And they're like, what are you doing? And so I show my before and after picture, and it gives me the opening. And like I said, their eyes get big and their jaw kind of usually drops. The mouth almost always, what? How? And then their first question is, how did you do it?
How'd you do it?
And so that gives me the opportunity, the doors open, and I explain to them, I only eat animal source foods. I'm never hungry except at mealtime. That's the only time I eat. Now, for myself, I know I'm still healing. It's only been 10 months. It'll be 11 months on the 16th. And, the healing's ongoing. And we've learned along the way that meat's not just my food, it's also my medicine. Because due to a job I had a month ago, the lunch hours were such, and the rules were that it became almost impossible for me to feast enough in the morning to plan to get through that lunch hour.
Hmm.
And after a couple of weeks, one morning, I wasn't depressed, my mood was good, but some of my other, let's say, crazy behaviors made a brief appearance.
Hmm.
And my wife looks at me and says, you're not making sense anymore. You sound like you used to.
Uh-oh.
Oh, so I was like, that'll get you by the throat and wake you up real quick.
Yeah.
So we had to figure it. The only thing that had changed was the job. And the only thing about the job, I mean, I'd had other jobs before and not had any problem. But the only thing that was difficult was I couldn't eat when I needed to.
Mm.
And apparently there's an accumulative effect of that for me. We don't know what mechanism it is. I wish somebody would study me, Tom. I really just,
Yeah. It'd
I'm
be a great
surprised
case
there's not a
study.
line at the door of people wanting to take my blood
Yeah,
because,
I think it hasn't sunk in that this is just isn't a fad diet that's going to go away. I mean, they got people out there have been doing it for 20 years, 10 years, and the movement's growing because people get results.
well, I 2 months into my carnivorous experience, a lady who I had grown up with, she's a few years older than me,
Mhm.
but she had been diagnosed a few years ago with primary progressive multiple sclerosis. Her doctor
Wow.
told her that hers was a type that would never go into remission and that she could look forward to spending most of the rest of her life in a wheelchair. So I'm posting on Facebook there these first weeks, just kind of, logging what's going on and what I'm experiencing. And, my depression symptoms went away. And most of my friends are like, yeah, right. There he goes again. That's Brett being Brett, talking crazy. Well, she took me serious and messaged me saying, could you please explain this to me? And then she shared with me what she was doing. And Tom, she started eating meat and drinking water. And after 4 months, all of her symptoms were gone.
Mm.
All of her symptoms were gone. I didn't even know what all she suffered from until she started she said, I stopped falling down. Oh my gosh. I knew multiple sclerosis was horrible, but I just couldn't imagine. That would be one of the first things you would tell somebody that went away. I stopped falling down.
Yeah.
The tinnitus, the insane tinnitus that she had to put up with went away, the ringing in her ears,
Hmm.
and a whole host of other things. And she's completely free. And this is the best part, Tom. After she got done telling me about it, she fired that neurologist that told her that she'd spend most of the rest of her life in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And she remains to this day symptom free.
That's so
So
excellent.
I made up my mind at that point. There's power in our stories. Our experiences matter. And because our experiences defy the establishment and the status quo, the lies that you and I know and thousands of other people now know about that have been force-fed on our society for decades, they can't explain us away. They can't explain our stories away. I mean, by all rights, it's been today's my 323rd day of eating meat and drinking water. No dietary fiber. I walked 5 miles today in 94-degree heat with no shirt on. I got no sunburn whatsoever.
Yeah, that's another side effect that's kind of amazing is how much better we tolerate the sun.
Well, it's because there's no toxins in our skin anymore. We're not putting toxins in our bodies that would come to the surface of our skin because our body's natural defense mechanisms like, okay, let's push that to fat and get that as far away from, all organs as quickly as possible. And it's no wonder that if you stop and think about it, for 2.5, 3 million years, we didn't have sunscreen.
Absolutely.
There was no, oh, mother, I must stay home from the hunt today because the sun is just too bright.
The
No.
UV index is too high. I can't go get any food.
I mean, it's ridiculous. No, we started putting garbage into our bodies especially the last 150 years with the seed oils and whatnot. And then you got the genetically modified seeds and fruit that's sold in the store doesn't look anything like fruit found out in the wild.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Brett, you froze up. Oh, no. Well, anyways, are you back?
Suffer.
There you are.
I'm still here.
Yeah, it froze for a second. So
Well, we are 3,000 miles or so apart. That's
I know. I've got another buddy out there in Florida. Do you know Kevin Van Dorn by any chance?
I do. Matter of fact, I've talked with Kevin. He interviewed me last January, I believe. This past January.
Yeah, I thought I remembered that. Guy. Yeah, he's a good guy. I did a podcast or two with him too. So.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. I love it. They do really great work. Him and his wife are great examples of a ketogenic diet success. And he's a real pleasant guy to talk with. I always encourage people when they first start telling stories, go see Kevin. He's a good guy. He's a good person to find out if this is something you really want to do on a regular basis or not.
Yeah. All right. So if people want to follow you or get in touch with you, what do you have going on?
Well, there's two places that is best to find me. Number one, I would suggest find me at Instagram at thankful.carnivore. And you could find me on Twitter at Stickman That's StickmanBleedin. Don't add the G. Twitter won't let you. And I've got a Facebook group called Thankful Carnivore. You can come check me out there. Visit with me if you have any questions about the carnivore diet or how I eat, or just want to come hang out, come by and pay a visit.
Awesome. So tell me, I got one more burning question. Where'd you get that awesome tank top?
My wife designed this. We have our own little web store. We call it Meaty Tees. And it's all pro carnivore t-shirts because we believe in this way of eating. My wife's also carnivorous. She's a month behind me. And I will take a moment to one aspect of carnivory that is so awesome is, especially if you're married to a carnivore, is your libido returns to its normal homeostatic state, which for me is about that of a 20-year-old.
Good for you.
And my wife reports similar. So yes, there's a lot of smiling at our house. And she's experienced, she got into it because she had arthritis in her shoulders. Well, her arthritis in her shoulders is gone. And she had it really bad in her hands, and it's healed up greatly. It's almost completely gone. She's got just minimal discomfort in her hands now by comparison. And again, she's 9 months plus into it, so she's still healing. We've barely scratched the surface of what's possible here.
Yeah, I'm a year and a half into it, and I'm still healing. So,
yeah, it seems to me, based on what I read, it would take 3 to 5 years, depending on how sick you were, your age when you started, and those kind of things. And of course, genetics is always specific to the individual. We all heal at different speeds for different maladies.
Sure.
And if it takes till the rest of my life before I'm free, completely healed, that'll be okay, because I'm going to keep eating meat and drinking water regardless.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
No need to change. I can't imagine a scenario other than a bizarre famine or a catastrophe like The Walking Dead, the zombie apocalypse finally happens for real, Then I could see I would eat something besides meat and water. But till then, I really can't comprehend it. There's just no need.
Well, you and I both live in states with a lot of cattle, so there's hope.
Well, we plan on retiring. We're in Florida now, North Florida, and we plan on retiring to Maine in about 5 years. So we're going to be going back to 4 seasons. And one of the reasons why we're looking at Maine specifically is because you can hunt your own food up there with great regularity. And that's something that we want to be able to do in case the wackos decide to tax meat out of our reach. And as you well know, there is a march afoot to accomplish that. So
yeah, we're going to have to start running for office soon.
We're going to have to start doing something. If nothing else, we're going to have to start voting for pro-human candidates.
There's also that small chance that so many people will realize a carnivore diet is right for them that the population will just keep growing. I know think I saw an interview with, do you know Travis Statham? He's one of the mods on World Carnivore Tribe. And I think he was saying something like Sean had wanted to get the membership up to like 1 million people in World Carnivore Tribe. Now you figure that's like a third of a percent of the country in one Facebook group. That would be amazing. But you never know. It just keeps growing. I think when I joined that group, it was like 5,000 people, and now it's like 35,000 people, 40,000. I don't know. It's a lot.
They just clicked over 30,000 a few days ago. Travis made a post about it. And I know when I first joined there last year in July, they had, I think, 21,000. So that's 9,000 in less than a year. Then you've got zeroing in on health. They were 25,000 when I showed up. I believe they're well over 30,000 now too. So there's 60,000 just between those two groups, and then there's Phil Escott's group, Carnivore and 100% Carnivore
100%,
Beyond.
yeah.
He's got over 10,000 people in that group.
Phil's a great guy. I love talking
Phil's
to that
awesome.
guy. Yeah.
He is a super nice man. I have nothing but immense respect for Phil Escott. And you talk about the size of groups. There's that 7-day meal planning low carb group out of South Africa, the 7-day Banting.
Yeah, you're right.
There's 1.5 million, 1.6 million in that group. So it's doable.
Right.
We just have to keep spreading the word, sharing our stories. And a way to tell if our stories are moving the needle or not is this. If you start the more crazy anti-meat claims that start coming out in the media, that to me is a sure sign we're moving the needle in our favor, in humanity's favor, away from Nestle's and Kellogg's favor.
Yeah, I like to tell people I went to a university that was essentially founded by the Kellogg Foundation. So, and I live all of 20 miles from the Seventh-day Adventist town of Mariloma. So, in fact, I go over they have a great hospital there and a great dental school. So I've been over there many times. So I live right between these two establishments that are very much in the plant-based diet business.
Yeah, I was rather unaware of their involvement and the fact that they're really kind of the godfathers of this whole meat-based or plant-based existence nonsense anyway. And I learned about that through people like Tristan Haggard and then Belinda Fecky. Man, she turned into a research genius on them. I think she's got their number. I think she's got their home addresses and their social security number. She's researched these people.
There's quite a few documentaries just on YouTube about Ellen G. White, who's the, prophet or whatever. It is, as a young girl, she was hit in the face with a rock by another girl and was seriously injured. And then all of a sudden she became a prophet who decided that people shouldn't eat meat. And that's kind of how that splinter group that became the Seventh-day Adventists was formed.
Yeah, and the bizarre notion that meat would encourage young men or men to masturbate. I still haven't figured that nonsense out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty out there.
It's probably because they're healthy, The best way to have a good libido is to be healthy.
It's exactly right. And, learning self-control is a lot better than starving yourself of the most densely absorbable nutrition on planet Earth for human beings. It rather defies logic. And this whole notion of the Garden of Eden diet.
Right.
Oh, I would be almost irreparably psychotic inside of a week if I ate like that. I mean, literally, it would just be horrible. I can't comprehend it. But see, that's what they would advocate. They would rather somebody like me suffer, or my wife, should just hurt and go back to being painfully arthritic.
Right. I find it ironic that it's the Seventh-day Adventists that have the great dental school because, if we didn't eat so many carbohydrates, we wouldn't need all that dental work. When they look at the teeth of our predecessors, they rarely had cavities. and they don't have plaque and calculus on their teeth because they didn't eat carbohydrates. They didn't eat
weren't eating
plants.
sugar. They were not eating sugar at all.
Or grains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or the grains that they were eating were not this processed to the nth degree and genetically altered and all that stuff.
Sure. And the oldest butchered bones are 2.7 million years old. So hominids have been butchering large animals for at least 2.7 million years. And the first evidence we were eating any plants comes along 50,000 years ago. And it's a very small amount. So, that right there was, I love paleontology and archaeology and stuff like that. And I love reading about the nitrogen isotopes and the C13 and the C14 and all that. So that was really the stuff that convinced me that we had been evolved, or we became who we are because of what we ate. And that was some of the most convincing evidence to me. I don't think that's a little far-fetched for some people, but
well, a lot of people just seem to be incapable of realizing that history goes back a long, long way. We've been on this ball of rock for a long time, meandering around doing what humans do. And people can't seem to comprehend the fact that just 250 years ago, there was no corner store anywhere except in towns. And they weren't corner stores. They were open markets that if people walked into an open market from 300 or 400 years ago, just the stench alone would knock them over. Because the hygiene was minimal. There was no sewage. There was none of the amenities that we have now. And that probably contributed more to the shorter lifespan than anything else, was just the poor hygiene. That and the fact that childbirth was so dangerous.
Right.
But I have enjoyed this, Tom. I really hope that we could do something again in the future.
Oh, I'd love to.
And have maybe a longer conversation, maybe a little more specific.
Absolutely.
In certain aspects. I want to thank you so much for this, and I appreciate what you're doing.
No, and thank you. I appreciate your time and your story.
And folks, if you don't take anything else away from this conversation, take away the fact you don't have to take our word for it. You can try eating meat and drinking water for just 30 days. Now stop and think about this for a second. A doctor will write you a prescription and give you a pill to take sight unseen, not explaining. You don't know who designed it. You don't know anything about it. And you'll take that pill blind for 6 months.
Right.
No guarantees that it's going to work on any level. And you won't take a chance on eating meat and drinking water for 30 days. I think Tom and I are living proof.
Yeah.
Scurvy's not going to get you.
Hasn't got me yet. I should. I could have made a couple of voyages from continent to continent and back, and I haven't had any signs of scurvy. So.
Yeah, Sean Baker's another great example of how scurvy will get you every time. In his 50s, winning gold medals in international competition. That poor guy.
Yeah, I happened to go see that last rowing competition and got to meet him there, and that is one hell of an athlete, I'll tell you.
Oh my goodness, I'm so jealous. You got to meet him, Nicky's hand. I got to meet him in a video conference, kind of like we're doing. I had the pleasure of being on the HBO podcast a few weeks ago.
Great podcast.
He sits down in this chair, and it's just like a human mountain.
Yeah, he's really tall, and he's got these really long monkey arms. It's amazing.
Oh, he's a unique individual, and he's an incredibly intelligent person. And I can't think of a better de facto head of this movement to have than Sean Baker.
He's a nice guy, and he's easygoing, and he seems like all the negative stuff doesn't really bother him that much, which is amazing.
He's got incredible focus.
Yeah. So, well, make sure and send me links for your Meaty Tees and your Facebook group and all that stuff. So I can put that in the show notes, and we'll definitely talk about doing another one of these before too long. See if we can come up with some more subjects to talk about. But I really do appreciate your time. I don't want to hold you up.
Well, thanks so much, Tom, for having me. I thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit, and I look forward to doing it again in the future. I've had a great time, and you have yourselves
Likewise,
a great evening.
you too.